Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this is episode 214. Today is Wednesday, September 4th, year of our Lord 2024, and we're happy to have you back again. Want to talk about a couple of things I've been thinking about. Um, Definitely this school shooting that happened today. Um, Kamala Harris with the fake black accent in Detroit, and what has been used to justify the fakeness, the term code switching. I want to talk about a little bit. And last but not least, the Uniparty. And there's a great shining example of the Uniparty. And by the end, I hope that I don't offend everybody watching or some people watching or anybody watching, but there's just some things we got to discuss today. Okay. So let's start with the school shooting. Um, Yesterday, my daughter went back to school. Last week, Benjamin, first of all, Benjamin, my son, is doing well. We went to his last doctor's appointment to follow up from when he had the abscess on his brain. The abscess and the infection is completely gone. The swelling has completely subsided. The scan of his brain, he had an MRI done. The scan of his brain looks completely night and day from when we took him in some months back or several months back now. And his the abscess was so big, it was literally pushing his brain off to the left side, causing him not to be able to see. One of the scariest things in my life. And I remember still to this day, just a harrowing experience, having your kid tell you that he can't see, and not knowing whether to believe him or not. It's just one of those things. With kids, they say things, and sometimes they embellish, sometimes they exaggerate, especially when it comes to being sick and whatnot. And as a dad, you think, what do you mean you can't see? And when your kid is there with both of his eyes, open, and says that he can't see, your instinct is that he might be in trouble and to take him to the hospital, and that's what we did. And ended up being that he really couldn't see out of his eye because his brain was being pushed to one side. So just can't say how thankful I am to everybody in the audience. I remember we called to uplift little Benjamin in prayer at the time. And it ended up being the best case scenario. It was an abscess they were able to drain. He started to heal. Had some tough nights there in the in the hospital during his hospital stay, as they let that abscess drain, and they had to continue to give him medicine and watch his and watch him. But the prayers were overwhelming, and they were answered. And Benjamin's doing well now. He went back to school last week on Thursday. He goes to a different school than my other two kids, and my daughter went back to school. She started the sixth grade yesterday, and my son, who is now in the eighth grade, started today. So, you know, as a parent, I understand the fear, and every day that my kids go to school in this country, I think to myself, um, we live in dangerous times. There's no doubt about that. And schools are targeted, obviously, because the children, and even in some regards the teachers, are some of the most vulnerable individuals in this country, especially during a school day. um, but it's not just that. They're also targeted um, because of demonic forces. I mean, let's cut straight to the chase here. Every time there's a school shooting, the conversation is about confiscating your gun rights, and it's not by accident that the Democrats have made it such a priority to uh, limit Second Amendment rights in this country. It's not by accident. It's actually the hallmark of the Democrat platform in many ways, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But These are demonic forces at work that would target the most vulnerable in a society. Um, Little children, anybody who would target little children sexually, violently, are expressing a demonic impulse. So there's demonic forces at work in this country, and so as a parent, when you send your kids off to school, you have to deal with the reality that these things are happening. And while that's the case, as an American citizen who understands the value of American citizenship and understands the rights that were granted to us by a creator, not by the government, secured by the federal government, but not granted to you by the federal government, you understand just how important the Second Amendment really is. And there is some level of accepted risk associated with the brilliant evolution of political thought and constitution around the Second Amendment. I mean, there is some unknown level of danger that we accept in order to protect ourselves from tyrannical government. And that's what I meant to say. I guess we've stumbled into it early here, where the hallmark of the Democrat Party, really and truly, I mean, you could talk about Marxism and communism, and we could talk about the LGBTQ, and we could talk about abortion, we could talk about all kinds of cultural wedge issues that have become that have become or have dominated the headlines of the mainstream media and the propaganda. But really, the hallmark of the Democrat Party, the hallmark of the left and the entire liberal movement in this country is the expansion of the federal government and the scope of their authority. This notion that we should willingly give over more autonomy to a federal government and trust in that government to be righteous, to be fair, to be just, which is a complete contradiction of their purported political ideology in the first place. Their purported political ideology, as I said on Monday, as I said on last Friday and on Wednesday before that, their purported ideology is that the entire system is riddled with white supremacy and thus evil and hatred. However, we should trust that same government that isn't much more isn't that much more diverse than it's ever really been. If we're really, I mean, if we're just talking sheer numbers, our government isn't so much more diverse than it's ever been. There is more diversity in it, quote unquote. Not that that should even really matter, but per their theory, there is more diversity in it. But by no stretch is there enough diversity to make the claim that it's now been rid of any remnants of white supremacy, as they would call it. Again, I refer back to this idea that the only white people that are okay are the white people who vote Democrat, the white people who talk about racism as a political idea, but then act racist in their real life with their actions and words. Those are the only white people that are okay. Well, those white people dominate one whole half of government. So, I mean, I'm not really, again, I'm not certain how we've come to this conclusion that our government is so trustworthy that we should give up our guns, but the whole system is guilty and we should burn America to the ground at the same time. It's the great paradox of political thought in human history. Um, but we're not going to give up our guns, and the reason is because we don't trust the government, and we shouldn't trust the government not to be tyrannical. And there is some accepted risk that comes with the Second Amendment. It's just what it is. Now, the key to a country thriving, being prosperous, being healthy, is to have a Second Amendment that is fortified with some significant culture of civic duty. And you could say that religion and faith fit comfortably right in there as well. That uh, some submission to a higher authority has the ability to, at least the ability to, dissuade people from certain actions in their life. We see that all across the world, all throughout history, that people's belief in the eternal, the spiritual, the metaphysical can oftentimes dissuade them from certain actions. Now, it can also persuade them to certain actions as well, and that's something that we can discuss here in a moment because I certainly do see this trajectory of the rise in school shootings and the overall decline in Christianity as a country. Actually, the two coincide almost perfectly, which make of what you will for all you secular humanists out there. But my point again is to say that Christianity fits well in that American civic duty in terms of dissuading people from certain actions. So the ideal situation is that you have a Second Amendment, but it's supported by a culture that has a real emphasis on civic duty and spiritual standing, spiritual good spiritual standing. In that combination, you could have a citizenry, a populace, a country of people who both can defend themselves when necessary, if necessary, against a tyrannical government or unjust governance, as well as limit the behaviors or the violence that is possible anytime you have weapons and guns. This is the call to American citizenship. This is part of why they say it's an experiment because even to suggest that something like that can be accomplished is completely what you could say is an aspiration. Well, America in it of itself is an aspiration by historical standards because there's never been a construction of government or a society like ours, especially the ideas that have been constituted as inalienable rights. There's never been a society in human history that's been constructed this way. So by definition, it is experimental because it it places a greater uh, onus on the individual to rise to the highest level of civic duty and good spiritual standing that a government, a nation, and a community could possibly ask for. And that's a beautiful thing. That's something that we shouldn't squander. It's something that the communists and the Marxists have to defeat for an obvious reason, because their goal to have the state be the highest authority is forever stalled as long as any broad group, any broad population of citizens believe in what we have as American foundational values and beliefs. As long as we have those, as long as a broad population of individuals believe in those types of inalienable rights, the Marxists and communists and really uh, totalitarian and tyrannical takeovers are stalled. And that's what we're seeing right now. That's why the Second Amendment and this gun right conversation is always at the forefront of the Democrat platform. It has nothing to do with saving the children. It has absolutely nothing to do with saving the children whatsoever. And that's it's actually an insult. And it's an insult when you all try to uh, discredit Alex Jones or anybody else who has harsh criticism or comments about situations like this. It's a real insult to those children's parents when you use these school shootings as a political tool to push your own agenda, to push your own efforts to bring about totalitarian and tyrannical governance. It's a real insult to those parents and the memory of the children and whoever else we lose in those situations when you do that. That's actually what's disrespectful. That's the most disrespectful. And we see it with clear eyes. Not only are we not giving up our Second Amendment rights just on general principle, but even furthermore, it is my duty as a commentator on these political matters to point out the detail and nuance of the real motive and the dishonesty and the lack of genuineness in the motive and how insulting that is not only to the broad American population, every citizen in this country, but also the memories and the families and the individuals who we lose in tragic incidents like today's. Because you don't care about the children. Cut that out. Stop that. You don't care about the children. You don't care about the children when it comes to school shootings. You don't care about the children, obviously, when it comes to, normalizing taking them to drag strip shows. You don't care about the children, in another country when you do your warmongering. You don't care about the children in black communities. The black communities who, by the way, let's just point out an interesting stat. Out of 193 countries, we are third in gun violence. If you took the five top countries, the five top cities for gun violence in this country, I think it's St. Louis, Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. If you took those five countries, if you took those five cities, I'm sorry, if you took those five cities out of the gun violence, we would move from third out of 193 countries to 189th out of 193 countries in gun violence. Just so happens all of those cities are and have been run by Democrats for a long time. And it just so happens that they have the strictest gun laws of any other cities in the country. Now, make of that what you will. And I'll say one thing first and foremost: you black folks are out of control. That stat should alarm you. And I don't want to hear no workaround about cultural conditions and history, and I get it, and that's fine. And there's a time and a place to have that conversation. But from the outset, what we as black people in this country must acknowledge is we are responsible. Our communities, our cities are responsible for the most prominent gun violence in the entire world. We are one of the most violent communities. We are one of the most violent collective communities in the entire fucking world. And that's just a disgrace. It saddens me. It's a shame, and you all should be ashamed. We should all be ashamed. All of us black people in this country, we should be ashamed. We should be ashamed that we let our country and we let our communities get this way. Again, out of 193 countries, we're third in gun violence. Third. If you took the top 5 cities in the country for gun violence and you pulled them out of the statistics, we would move from third out of 193 countries to 189th. But the point, even furthermore, is what does it say to all of these? What does it say about all these Democrats that they would subject the rest of the people who live in or around black communities to that gun violence by disarming them from owning legal guns? And if you need a good example for this, not only is it a sort of cuckery for this totalitarian state worshiping mentality, but it's also a direct attack on the people in the community. I mean, a direct attack, a violent, physical, kinetic attack on the people in the community. Yeah, because when you look at the place with the most strictest gun laws in the world, Mexico probably has the most strict gun laws in the entire world, and I would venture to guess that they are ahead of us when it comes to gun violence, and the cartels are terrorizing the citizens of Mexico. And the only other people that have the weapons are the government, who many rightly would say are also in on the racket of drugs and violence with the cartel. So not only do you have this merger in America of the corporations and the financial institutions and the politicians, this merger of government and corporation, now you're starting to see a political a sort of political merger, a political connection between the politicians, the corporations, the policy, and the most violent people in our country, all working in one accord. And so you saw it happen there in New York City, and people go, "Well, to what end? What's the agenda?" I was told today that if you go to my Wikipedia, the first thing they say about me is that I'm an American conspiracy theorist on Wikipedia. Go figure. The one thing that people ask they would say, "Well, what's the agenda? Why are they What is the end goal? Well, the end goal is we're going to create so much violence and chaos that eventually we can justify martial law, and you American citizens that once had a profound sense of citizenship and individual autonomy and freedom of movement, you American citizens that represented a bastion of freedom in the whole world, you will beg for tyranny to avert the violence and the chaos. You will beg for tyranny to avoid tragedy. So my thoughts and prayers are with the people who were involved in this school shooting today, and the families and whatever whoever we lost today in that tragedy. But I'm never so. Remember, I said even about the Holocaust, it's not about tragedy; it's how tragedy is used. It's how it's weaponized. And under no circumstances will we allow the malfeasance, the corruption, the economic, political, and cultural practices, the corrupt economic, political, and cultural practices of this country, of our permanent political class, of our elites, of our government, of our community, of our people. Not throwing it all on the top, but there's a lot of blame there. But it's us as a people. It's we the people. You get the government you deserve. Never fucking forget that. I'm not, I'm saying that corruption, that spirit of corruption is what leads to tragedy. So never in a 100,000 years will we allow that failure to uh, take from us what is most important, to take our rights. Never will we allow the failures of the culture, of the community. Never will we allow the failures of the nation, of the government, to have us surrender our inalienable rights. No, no, no. No, 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 no. We're not doing that. No, we can't do that. Can't do that. Not doing it. So my thoughts and prayers are with everybody who's been a victim to gun violence, whether it's at a school, whether it's in their community, whoever it is, wherever you are. My thoughts and my prayers are with you. And I know life can be tragic. I just saw, say the young girl's name that was there on her front stoop, and a young man comes up in what looks like a, a, a jogging outfit, and he guns her down right in front of her house. Right in front of her house, shoots her, 7, 8 times. 4 kids she has. 4 kids. And out of being sensitive, I didn't want to add the clip. I almost put it as a cold open. Because that statistic about our black communities really rings true when you see the footage for yourself. And she begs for her life. She begs for her life. She says, please don't do this. I got babies. Don't do this. And he shoots her 7, 8 times. Shoots her, she falls, and he stands over and shoots her again. A couple more times. Psychopath. Demonic. And they want to send Donald Trump to jail. How hard do you think they're investigating that case? And maybe they are. I'm not saying they're not. But what I'm saying is it all works to one end goal. They don't care about her. They don't care about her. They don't care about those kids. The use of law and order in that situation isn't because if it was, then they wouldn't promote a culture where there are no laws. Right? Because when you say that there is no law for somebody coming across the border, then how do you tell somebody in Chicago or any one of these other communities that there's laws? Again, the rule of law only works when your lawmakers are righteous. When your lawmakers are corrupt, there is no rule of law. And we all know our lawmakers are corrupt. And she has to, and that young woman who was gunned down, she has to pay the cost. She ends up being the one who pays for it. And the schools end up and the children that they end up paying for it. But it's not the guns. What happens is when you live in a culture that's inundated with with political, economic, and cultural corruption, people lose their moral compass. They lose their moral compass, they lose their soul, and they want to take other people with them. That's what happens. And it's no coincidence. Again, I'll say it's no coincidence that the decline of Christianity in this country directly correlates to the rise in school shootings and mass shootings. It's no coincidence. But you want to fire football coaches for trying to baptize his young men. We're not letting you take our guns. What we will do is we will start to acknowledge the widespread corruption in this country and it's in our government and how that culture of corruption bleeds out into the rest of society at a spiritual level. And we'll start to change that. That's what we'll do. That's what we'll do. We'll start to teach people again what we're going to do. And this is the separation of church and state is fine. That's all good. And there's a very simple answer here. The only thing the federal government has to do in terms of our Christian community is stay out of the way. Let us minister the gospel. Don't impede us from ministering the gospel. The only thing that the church has to do is minister the gospel. Don't be trying to make the government, don't be trying to use the government to force Christianity by fiat, because it doesn't work. We see that now. We see a Christian right in this country that has constantly tried to use the government to forcefully make people submit to the will of God, but that was never the will of God. That's the whole edifice of free will in the first place. If you have to be forced to submit to God, then you don't really love him. You have to willfully submit to God in order for the love to be genuine. Willfully submit. We have a willful submission and voluntary faith here in the Christian tradition. We have to willfully submit to God. So you Christians, don't be trying to make the government force Christianity. The only thing the federal government needs to do is stay out of our way and let us minister the gospel. Let us have our freedom of speech and our freedom of assembly to go door to door with our Bibles and minister the value of the gospel. And there's the peace. And that's what real leaders do. Simple. Simple. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to give up our guns. That's not going to happen. Sorry. Sorry, I'm not sorry. We're not giving up our gun rights. Not happening. Not happening. And we obviously need some more Christian ministry in these communities, in these cities that are Democrat, because they have gone to complete and utter chaos. Strictest gun laws, complete and utter chaos. 193 countries in the world. We're third in gun violence. If you took the 5 top cities, St. Louis, Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, if you took the top 5 cities out of the statistics, we would move from third out of 193 countries to 189th. Beautiful segue to my next topic. Let's talk about code switching. Let's talk about Kamala Harris standing up there in Detroit and talking like she doesn't have any damn sense. To appeal to who? People who you all have undereducated? You think it's cool to talk, what they say is talking black? You think that we actually think that shit is cool still. That shit's not cool. It's not cool to talk like you haven't been educated properly, like you don't know how to read or speak. There's nothing cool about that shit. It's actually the greatest sign of our own self-hatred. It's one of the most beautiful scenes in the movie is The Great Debaters. No. Yeah, the quote was used in The Great Debaters, but it was also in Coach Carter. And he asked him, what is your greatest fear? And our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. It's that we're powerful beyond measure. That That's when America was America. That's when the pro-black movement, quote unquote, was really a pro-black movement when we aspired to the highest level of intellectual capacity and productivity. That is what we have to get back to. That's what we need to get back to. In black communities all across this country, we are philosophically and morally bankrupt. It's not an argument. It's not a statement. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. I grew up in the hood. I grew up on a block where they sold crack, and I was fortunate to make it out. I saw a young kid and his name's Zach Lofton. He's an incredible basketball player. Had his stint in playing pro. Probably still plays pro right now overseas, maybe or something of that nature. But young kid, my little brother, my little bro. Saw him grow up from a young kid. Played at the same park. Lived at the house at the end of the block. Loved his people loved me. Our family, we know each other. Grew up on the exact same block. Imagine two kids going to the NBA from the exact same block. I'm talking this block right here. I mean, this from that house to that house at the end of the corner, the exact same block we grew up on, and we both went to the NBA. The chances are, you know, astronomical. I mean, it's almost impossible. But we did. I saw him. I saw him this weekend at the state fair, coming in the state fair. And my point in saying that is, we grew up. We grew up in a place where it was. We were lucky to make it out. Honestly, we were lucky to make it out. A lot of our friends, a lot of his friends, probably his age. I'm a little bit older than him. A lot of my friends dead. Dead right now, shot and killed, dead. My friend Maurice, he was from the east side of St. Paul, but earlier, earlier this year, I posted about him getting shot and killed there in Tennessee by some young kid, some young 19-year-old kid killed him. He's just working his own security job. We have philosophical and moral bankruptcy in our communities, and what they plan to do now is use a woman to justify what our community has become by using some fake fucking accent and then giving you some mealy mouth academic explanation as to how it's real. You're supposed to believe it. It's genuine. Called code switching. I don't know shit about code switching. I talk how I talk when I talk. Now you can go. It's funny is you can go to the internet and see. I was telling somebody the other day that oh, I know what it was. The kicker, his name is Grant Mahoney from Iowa State, obviously a liberal cucktard, and he made a comment online about me having anxiety and needing medications. His common trope of because they're all so tolerant and they're all so they're all such big advocates of things like mental health issues. It's kind of a kind of relevant to the topic of today in school shootings. A lot of these people are dealing with severe mental health issues, if not complete demonic possession. But anyway, a lot of them are actually medicated by big pharma medications that actually have labels which suggest that there is the potential for certain psychiatric medications to cause suicidal behavior. But we'll save that for another podcast. The young man made fun of me, and now imagine you got a place kicker who was a 61% place kicker at Iowa State when I was there, talk trash to an All-American who was the only player in the entire country, probably in any number of seasons, to lead my team in every major stat category. You got a guy who was a place kicker trying to talk shit to a guy who was doing everything on the court, absolutely everything. Okay, this is the world. This is the culture that liberals have created, where the place kicker could even, stand up to talk shit. But you could only do it online because if we were around the locker room or around the weight room or in the gym or even if we were playing a little touch football out there on the field, he would never talk like that because men, we kind of organize ourselves by different principles. Part of those principles are at any moment we could be in a fist fight. And if you don't really want to be in a fist fight, you really don't talk shit like that. But it's the internet. So, when you create an internet world, then you get internet trolls and they think they live by internet consequences. And before you know it, they lose their mind completely. And that's what we're seeing a lot of today. My point is, he made a comment about me being on medication. And I said online in response that I actually stopped taking medication when I was diagnosed with anxiety disorder. When I was first diagnosed with anxiety disorder in 2008, before my senior year, I had started taking antidepressants. They're called SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and it's Prozac, Zoloft, those type of antidepressant, anti-anxiety medications. And when I first started having panic attacks, I noticed a difference right away. I mean, I really did. And they helped. They helped me restore my sleep. They helped me, lower my general levels of anxiety, and they were helpful. But you got to realize too, the male brain, the male brain continues to grow and mature, they say, until we're 25 years old. So when you administer medication, psychological medication at a teenage year, you are potentially having an effect on the growing and the natural growth of the brain itself. And, I say that because when I go back and I listen to interviews now, when I was 21, 22 years old, I could hear the estrogen in my voice. Now, there's a lot of you out there who don't know, it's been it's been said that these SSRIs, these serotonin reuptake inhibitors, actually produce estrogen. They have a habit of producing estrogen, which is why a lot of men who take them, a lot of young men that take them, a lot of grown men that take them experience erectile dysfunction. Obviously, I didn't have those problems. I have a kid who's 14, this kid that I had when I was 19 years old, and I was on the medication at the time. But so I never experienced the erectile dysfunction part of these medications, but it is common, so common that it's on the warning label. But another side effect is a loss of testosterone. Okay. And I can hear it in my voice. Now, when I go back, now, of course, you're young too, right? So, I mean, what your voice is like when you're 18, 19, and 20 versus what your voice is like when you're 30 and 35 is going to be different. But there's a significant difference, okay, of how I talk back then. And I still, even when I was like 26, 27, I was still dealing with the side effects. My voice, I could still hear the side effects in my voice from coming off of what was probably 3 or 4 years that I had taken the SSRIs. And my point to tie that all into what I was saying is this: uh, I never code switched. To go back to Kamala Harris, I know you're probably like, "What the hell does that do anything?" I never code switched. We talk the way we talk. I mean, it's just I talk the way I talk. I say the word cuck. I say the word fuck. I say, I say what I say when I say it. When what they mean by code switching. Let me help people out here. For people who don't know what there is a demographic and cultural reality that most of the time when you're going to apply for a job in this country, just because of the way that the country is made up. Most of the time, you're going into a professional setting and your boss may be white, probably will be white. The person who's doing the hiring and firing most likely will be white. That's just a demographical reality. Okay. Another subtle reality is not only may they be white, but they have probably gone through a higher educational process that has enculturated them in a certain type of dialectical, you know, uh, way of communicating. Just another. They probably went to college, most likely. In most cases. Now there are certain jobs and trade where, hey, as a trade, I'm not really, I didn't need to go to college to rise up in this industry and be in this position. But the point is that it's believed in black communities that when you go into a job setting like that, it's important to have what they call a professional way of communicating that deviates from the sort of slang and ebonics and kind of casual conversation that we may be having on a block like I grew up. I get that. I get that. But the point that needs to be made is the people like Kamala, the reason why it seems so dishonest when Kamala Harris does it is because there's never any other time where she talks like that in a public setting. And their excuse is going to be, oh, well, she doesn't talk like that because then the white folks wouldn't vote for her. But what they don't say is the white people who wouldn't vote for her because she doesn't sound educated enough are most likely white liberals because the white conservatives aren't voting for her anyway. What they're really saying is that their own side of the aisle harbors such racism, latent racism towards black people that Kamala Harris has had to pretend with how she talks her entire career. So much so that that's just how she talks. And now when it's politically advantageous and you're in Detroit, Michigan, one of the most riddled cities with gun violence in the entire country, now you're going to talk like you're uneducated? Do you see what's going on here? I mean, how fucking insulting is that? Just keep talking like you've been talking. Keep talking like the white liberals taught you to talk. Keep talking like the mealy-mouthed, college-educated white liberals taught you to talk. Don't come out there talking like me. See, you can go back through my podcast all the way back to episode 1, and I could talk in the most deepest of philosophical terms, but the tone of it, the authenticity of it still sounds the same. There's no mealy-mouthed kind of academic educated, tone I put to it. This is just the way that I talk each and every day. No matter where I'm at, I could be in a campaign meeting, I could be on the phone, I could be in an interview, I could be live television. It doesn't fucking matter. I'm talk the same way. So what they're really expressing when they say that Kamala Harris was code switching is that the liberal community, the liberal culture has created an expectation for these black folks to rise up and become the Jean-Pierre types or Don Lemon types. And, all the while, they all know it's fake. They know it's fake. The Don Lemon, Jean-Pierre, Kamala types, they know the shit is fake. Their white liberal masters know the shit is fake. And so anytime that they break character when it's politically advantageous, what is everybody talking about? We all know what's going on. We call it code switching. I mean, what kind of chameleonic thing is that to even admit? Like it's just normal cultural practice to talk one way when you're in one place and another way when you're in another place. What kind of shit is that to even admit? That's how crazy stupid these people think you are. They actually think that you should accept that your politicians talk one way in front of one crowd and another way in front of another crowd. Unbelievable. Code switching. Part of a permanent political class and their status quo culture of corruption in this country. It brings me to my last topic. And I know I'm going across a dangerous Rubicon here because hey, they already called me anti-Semitic. But let me explain a little bit. I was talking to somebody out at the state fair, and it's funny, you get to talk to so many people and you start to hear what people really think. And a lot of people that came up to me in my booth, they obviously are fans or they're following what I'm doing. They're following the podcast, the show, War Room. They know the things that I'm talking about, the things I'm standing for. They've actually heard me speak. And so their ideas are somewhat aligned. And furthermore, their ideas are actually flushed out around certain political issues. Some of them even I have to push to think about things a little differently. But there's this entirely different cohort or constituency of voters here in the state of Minnesota or this country that really have not given a whole lot of thought to their political positions whatsoever, let alone the political history, recent political history, and certainly not, you know, longer, deeper political history in this country. And it's interesting to talk to these people, because you start to really if you're talking genuine and you're not giving some stump speech or some talking points, it's actually what do they call it? Um, it's actually revelatory. It actually reveals a lot to you actually reveal a lot to yourself in real time when you have those kind of conversations. And I was trying to explain to somebody that the MAGA movement was a great departure from the traditional Republican Party that many, let's say black people, for example, associate with George Bush and the Bush junta and the George Bush sort of establishment elitist Republicans who we refer to as neocons, and really, by their own definition in American history, were liberals that had a conservative a conservative brand, and it was really just a brand. The whole idea of the neoconservative is that these were people who were liberals for the most part, fiscally conservative, but really didn't carry into those cultural, moral, Judeo-Christian ethics of the conservative right. I mean, that's not a conspiracy theory. I mean, that's written right there in the definition of neoconservatism and the history of neoconservatism on Wikipedia. Some things they get right, some things they just completely lie. But my point is, some things are hiding in plain sight, and that is hidden in plain sight. So it's funny trying to explain to people like, you guys think of Republicans as being monolithic. It's not a monolith. In fact, there's no greater you know internal split than the fight between the Donald Trump MAGA Republican Party and the traditional, establishment Republican Party. There's no greater fight in this country. It's just the truth. Look what they did with Nikki Haley. They try to run Nikki Haley in there to stop Donald Trump from getting nominated in the primary. I know how quickly we all forget. We move past primary season. Now we're on the general, and then everybody's going to act like we're on one, on one accord. But we're not. We're not. And that's how you see John McCain's son, Jimmy McCain, coming across and saying he's supporting Kamala Harris. You got local former Republican Party, what do they call him, official, Michael Broadcourt being used in every single national article regarding Minnesota's politics in the Republican Party. He's the de facto default, poster child for the Republican Party, I guess. First of all, he's not a Republican anymore. He left the Republican Party. He's trying to claim that he's a Republican still, but he's voting for Kamala and Waltz now. Not that he did. He's not a Tulsi Gabbard type who was like, I'm done with these Democrats. Time to hightail it. He's voting for the communist Waltz Harris ticket now. These people are still working against us at every turn. The civil war between the MAGA movement and the Republican establishment is still on, and you're getting a good look at who were always leaning with the communists in the first place. You're getting a good look at it. I'm glad. I'm happy. I'm happy to see it. I'm 33 years old. If nothing else from this election, we have to find out who's who. I like that. That's a step in the right direction. God bless Donald Trump for being a lightning rod to sort out who's who, to get a head count. If nothing else, Donald Trump's legacy is great, and we will win in November. But I'm the type of guys, I give people their flowers for the heart of what if nothing else. If nothing else, God bless Donald Trump's legacy and the MAGA movement for being a lightning rod to spark a political discourse in this country that started to sort who's who, made people really pick sides in public, not the pretend, behind the curtain, under the table, dirty DC swamp game that was happening before he came on the public stage. So, and John McCain's a great example. They can talk about his military service and being a POW. And again, our thoughts and prayers and respect and admiration goes out to anybody who chose to serve this country. But that doesn't mean you're beyond reproach. In what world are people who serve the country beyond reproach? Certainly, your average cop doesn't think so. When a vet a vet comes back from active duty or comes back from a rotation and he's dealing with PTSD and may not have the financial resources or the physical and mental capacity to stay on medication to keep himself even, and they shoot and kill him on a disturbing the peace call. Certainly our government and our Democrat-led cities aren't protecting our veterans from that. They're not protecting our veterans in the first place from being deployed to wars and conflicts that they don't need to be in. So don't be giving me the John McCain's a POW, so we should all what? Turn a blind eye? He was a warmonger. He was a warmonger and neocon. And you can find John McCain right there in the picture in Ukraine in 2014 with Lindsey Graham, who's another neocon, and Amy Klobuchar, who's another neocon. Find them right there. All right there. All right there in Ukraine, setting up a coup, setting the stage for a war. Academic, mealy mouth, scientific, managerial elite. Russia, Russia, Russia. Anti-Russia, vehemently anti-Russia. Willing to take us to a nuclear war if need be. We're going to take back Crimea. These are who these people are. John McCain's a warmonger. That's it. And his daughter, Meghan McCain, she's an idiot. They float her around like she's a Republican, on The View, because this makes us seem like we're being objective, right? We have some balance on The View if we bring Meghan McCain on. Meghan McCain's a fucking Democrat. I don't care what party she says I don't care what party she writes down. I don't care what party, she claims to be a part of. Her mentality, she's a liberal. She's a Democrat. She's a neocon. The neoconservative, neoliberal world order. And now Jimmy McCain, he proves it. Jimmy McCain, John McCain's son, has said he's throwing in with Waltz and Harris. And it lets you know that the Civil War is still on. So I don't want any of you MAGA patriots out there to think for a single second that the triumphs of Donald Trump or even a person like me here in the state of Minnesota has ended the plague, the neocon rhino plague that we have in this party. And it's a fight that's going to continue on well beyond November. I need everybody to understand that. So if you're out there and you vote for Donald Trump, the last thing you better be thinking is, I'm done with the Republican Party. You better go into the Republican Party. You better go into the Republican Party. All you need to do is be in the Republican Party. You make them run over to the Democrat Party. Let the Jimmy McCains and the Meghan McCains and the Nikki Haleys and whoever else out there doesn't believe in American citizenship and believes in forever wars and raising the debt ceiling, causing inflation, putting us further in debt. Whoever believes in China as the inexorable second law of thermonuclear dynamics, that we got to trade and do business independent on China or interdependent on China, whoever believes, let them go over to the Democrat Party. We'll go down into Detroit, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Chicago, and Los Angeles to find some American citizens who are sick of hearing gunshots every fucking day, who are sick of going outside and seeing homeless people laying all over their streets, can't walk to the park without having to step over a bunch of homeless folks who are on drugs, who got drug crack pipes and whatever else, laying around where the kids got to walk to school. Kids can't even walk to school anymore. We'll go get those people. And see, and I tried to tell somebody out at the state fair, and I want to, we're going to be quick. I got a quick out today. I'm going to try and get through this, under hour 20, but I try to explain to some people the real dynamic of the Republican Party right now. We got the Christian right, and we got the conservative right, let's say. And don't be thinking this is the same thing. We got to start to stratify this thing now. We got the conservative Republican Party, and then we got the Christian right of the Republican Party. And they're in there jostling for position. But they both have the same issue, fundamentally. The Christian right doesn't want to let sinners into the church. The Republican, conservative, political types don't want to let Democrats into the party. And when I say they don't want to let Democrats in the party, I'm not talking about letting the Democrats come in and change the platform. I'm talking about opening up a door, opening the tent, as Donald Trump has done by telling the fucking truth, to let people come into the party who have either never voted before. I met a bunch of young people out there who are voting for the first time, and overwhelmingly they come up and they say, we can't wait to vote for you. We can't wait till our classmates are coming up a couple years from now because they'll be voting for you too. So there's an entire new constituency of voters who appreciate the truth. And there are people who have never voted before because they're disaffected by how dishonest politics has been in general, who we can go get. And there are Black and Hispanic working class people who are sick and tired of living in the rotten conditions that the Democrats have overseen. Those are the people we need to get. Those are the people we're starting to get. But your Republican Party in many ways, and even more specifically, let's be more granular. Your Republican uh, uh, vanguards, the gatekeepers, the Norm Colemans of the world, the Tim Palentis of the world, even the Mitch McConnells of the world. The whole reason why they're still Republicans in the first place is, one, because it's lucrative, because it pays to be the controlled opposition, but they are the controlled opposition. And what their controlling is keeping new people from coming in the party. That's what they're controlling. That's what they're there to do. That's the purpose they serve. That's what Fox News is doing when they caricature the cultural dynamic in this country and they make it black and white. It's not black and white, it's green. And we all know it's green. Or let's say a lot of people know it's green. We got people who are standing up for this country in basic, common sense, rational logic. And we got people who have been brainwashed and trained to live in an alternate reality where it's okay to bring your child, your infant, to a drag strip show. It's not even a debate. When Donald Trump left office, the inflation rate was 1.8%. It was up during the pandemic. He got it all the way down to 1.8%. Kamala Harris and Biden brought it all the way back up to 9%. Election over. We shouldn't even have to talk about it anymore. But when you live in an alternative reality, you can just use words like code switching and talk like you ain't got no sense and you're from the South, in Detroit of all places, and all of a sudden you're credible. And then we got a lot of people who aren't even involved in the process. Remember, only about 150 million people voted out of about, I don't know, close to 400 million citizens. And there might be more than that. Because again, I don't know one person in my family who's ever filled out a census. So when they say there's 40 million black people in the country, there may be closer to 60 million black people in the country. We don't know. And we certainly don't know how many illegal immigrants there are. So we don't know how many people are living in the country, actually, but there's a whole lot of people out there who don't vote. We do know that. We know that for sure. So those people are out there to go speak the truth to and minister to and bring into the party. The traditional vanguard of the party is working to keep those people out. The Christian right wants to keep sinners out of the church. We need sinners in the church. We want sinners to come into the church and repent and hear the gospel. We want Democrats to change their minds and come into the party. That's what we want. As a matter of fact, that's what we need. And so we see, that there's two sides to every coin. There really is. And there's this thing going on that I got to point out, and that's Steve Daines. Steve Daines from Montana. And my good friend and mentor, Steve Bannon, was right to call Steve Daines out. Said he was Mitch McConnell's bitch. And and I didn't know it. It's funny. I didn't even know who Steve Daines was until the Star Tribune asked him for comment about my primary race and whether or not they were supporting me after I had won the endorsement, which, just as a general principle, the NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, should have supported me after I won the party's endorsement at a statewide convention, because we are the Republican Party and delegate body. And that didn't happen, and they gave a justification then that I was unelectable, and Steve Daines said, as the chair of that committee, that he didn't think I could win a primary, so they were going to wait and see. Yeah, and they try to throw their weight behind Joe Frazier. They were following Joe Frazier on social media. I saw it. I pay attention. They were following Joe Frazier on social media. It's hilarious. And Joe Frazier got that ass spanked in that primary. Yeah. Yeah, we won $148,000, all volunteers, no paid staff. The neocon couldn't even neocon right. The neocon Joe Frazier couldn't even do the neocon thing right because I outraised him by about $100,000. How do you explain that when you could go to any number of special interests and lobbyists from the military-industrial complex and get their PAC money to support your candidacy? But he couldn't even do that. Because although he's military intelligence, the military intelligent money wasn't willing to spend none on him. But Steve Daines knew that. See, you see where I'm going with Steve Daines knew. They didn't throw no money behind Frazier for him to win the primary. Or maybe they did. Maybe there was a little shadow campaign, a silent shadow campaign going around saying Royce White is unelectable. He speaks too much truth. He's too raw. He's too gritty. He's just what the fucking doctor ordered. Steve Daines, you neocon rhino cuck. And now, after I won the primary, he still doesn't want to acknowledge that I won. And I get it, buddy. I get it. But these people's days are numbered. My ambitions, I said it before, my ambitions go well beyond this 2024 election. If you're controlled opposition, we will find, I don't care how much PAC money you have, I don't care how well funded you are, we will find you, we will weed you out. For every Steve Daines we can get rid of, there's a Tulsi Gabbard, there's a Vivek Ramaswamy, there's a RFK Jr. that we can pull in. Let's swap, let's trade. You guys go caucus with the Democrats, and we'll take the people who actually believe in what they see right in front of them with their own eyes. But there's something even more important I got to talk about here. And I don't think anybody's been a bigger friend to Israel. I don't think anybody's been a bigger friend to the Jewish people and has talked about this issue in the Middle East or the cultural issues between blacks and Jews as genuinely and authentic as I have. Nobody's been a bigger friend to Israel and the Jews than the War Room and Steve Bannon. But we're going to get something straight right here, right now. When I go on X and I find that AIPAC is funding both Steve Daines or supporting Steve Daines and Amy Klobuchar, I have great cause for concern. And it dawns on me that when they say I'm anti-Semitic for my repudiation of funding both sides of the war there in the Middle East, strange that we have AIPAC funding both sides of the war right here in this country. And they are. And when I say war, I mean I don't mean a real war. I mean the controlled opposition, WWE politic war of mainstream Democrats and Republicans like Steve Daines and Amy Klobuchar who pretend that they're fighting about pro-life, but they send as much money as they can to the military-industrial complex. That's what I'm talking about, funding both sides of a war. We don't want to fund both sides of a war over there, and we don't want people funding both sides of a war over here. And what does it say? Is it not a conflict of interest? Is it not strange that AIPAC is funding, that AIPAC is supporting? It's probably funded because you don't go speak at AIPAC as the chair of the NRSC if AIPAC isn't giving you some money or if you're not vying to get some money or whatever the case may be. So isn't it strange that AIPAC is supporting Steve Daines, Republican senator from Montana, Steve Daines, and my Democrat opponent in the Senate here, Amy Klobuchar? Isn't that strange? Even further, isn't it a conflict of interest in principle? And if you can't say that it's a conflict of interest for a PAC to fund both sides of the aisle, what can you say? It's been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGit.com. That's TireGit.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us and help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we appreciate your viewership and listenership today and in the future. Look forward to Friday evening, Hebrews, with my great friend and mentor, the incredibly insightful Ukrainian Jewish Professor Penn. And why did I qualify that he's Ukrainian Jew? Just in case the deep state out there wants to try and cut this video up and say, anti-Semitism. No, sorry. That ain't going to work. That ain't going to work. The anti-Semitism thing is only going to work for about another 15 seconds. It's going to work just about as long as you trying to pass Kamala Harris off as being legitimate or being from the neighborhood of really understanding or having any interest in black struggles in the 5 Democrat cities that you all have let become the epitome of chaos and violence. It's only going to work about as long as her charade, because we got some real American pipe hitters up on deck now. Stay tuned for Friday. We got Hebrews coming with Professor Penn. And as always, on Saturday morning, the Royce White Show at 9 a.m. Eastern. Maybe hosting the War Room again this weekend on Saturday. I'm not sure. We'll see what my campaign calendar looks like. But hopefully I want to host War Room this weekend as well. So stay tuned for those 2 things. And as always, the fight continues. The people are coming. Godspeed.